Hello, my name is Fumiko, and thank you for this opportunity to speak in front of you guys. So today I've learned that it is about innovation and design education, but I would like to just give one take from fundamentally not an educator, but doing some sort of educational practices in Japan. So I have a company called Republic for now 12th year now. We've basically started off our company after the 2011 earthquake that took place in northeastern Japan. We roughly lost about 20,000 people, primarily in the north part of Japan. So, which is, of course, there are cities large and small, but had a mixture of different types of industry, including some of the agricultural or fishermen practices. We felt like we needed to really think about innovation. So this was the photo that I took a month after the earthquake happened. So this is in the city of Sendai, which has about more than 1 million people. But this is how, some cities has really come up from this scratch where they've lost everything. So this was the moment when we've been already practicing some of the innovation issues. Back then, I didn't have the company, but we were actually working in the field of design and innovation already. And then we had this one of the first practices of innovation in design education called iSchool, which actually IDEO, Tim Brown, and also David Kelly, they also helped us to set up these practices. So we felt like we knew something about innovation. We thought we knew something about design thinking. So we brought lots of talented students from domestic and overseas. We went to these places together, did lots of different projects, but there was something that we felt like what's missing is actually whoever is going to innovate, when they come from within, when they come from the place, it has so much more power, and then this connection and the reasons for the city or the people around them to help them to make things happen. So that's when I realized that, maybe something about a place-based innovation that we need to really pursue on. And that was the reason why that we kind of set up this company that we have today. We call ourselves as a think and do tank. So of course we do think. We do learn from people like you, trying to understand what is happening around the world, but how do we put in practice? And that's really where actual learning happens. So this is what we're trying to do together with 20 other staffs of the Republic. So over the 12 years, we've been really involved from north to south, different places around the world. I think roughly every year we engage with maybe 400 people, not just students, but also some of the practitioners or some people who is willing to do something, purpose-driven innovation in a way. So we have different types of programs running in different parts of Japan. Now, the green places are not necessarily where we have our studios, but the ones with the tilted P, that's where we have the studio and teams. And then the green places are some of our collaborators who have some similar pursuit as we are. We probably have 3 keywords: place, people, and practice. And I think, most of us really do sort of have all 3 of the elements in our practices today. As I said, because people have the will to do something, people have their skill sets and abilities, but probably the question is how to make those put together and make new things happen. And also sometimes it helps us to understand what are the cultures and heritage and technologies and the industries even happening already in the place. And then by connecting those 2 together, we feel like there's some other practices going to happen. By the way, that's little hotel that we have. We have a sister company which does the tourism company, but because there were so many different craftsmanships around and we felt like there's this lack of experience, the lack of place where we can experience that. So that's a craft inn that we actually run in south of Japan. So going a little bit back and being holistic a little bit, what is not innovation? Because it's always like starting from the definition is always really difficult. And I think I don't really need to speak much about this, but I would be quite bold to say that maybe some of the technological innovative things at a glance is probably we shouldn't be considering it as an innovation. So it's already like 2005, 2006 that Ubers and Lyfts and they came to service. And definitely it is convenient. Just having your iPhone and app and just by the click of the button, then you have food delivered, taxis delivered. That is very useful and convenient. And I think to some extent, innovation has that aspect of conveniences and also meeting people's demands and needs. But then there has been a lot of statistics around after the use and the introduction of these services. So I've seen some statistics from both San Francisco and New York. And then after the 2006, there's a substantial number of congestions. So in any given time slots on the 24-hour slots, actually after these services came in, there's more congestions in the city. The average speed of the cars are slower. So it shows that there's something that we are actually missing by pursuing a very thumb-driven innovation, if you question about this. And I think this was also, have you seen this photo before this? Has anybody seen this? It's gorgeous in a way. But if you zoom in, these are all thrown away bicycles. This was around 2009, 2010. You might have seen it on some of the newspapers, but actually these colors indicate different startups coming up with the new bicycle services, the share bikes from the city in China. And I think in many cities, we've seen a rise of share bikes, and we also have it in Japan as well. But we need to actually question, on the name of pursuit for a startup and innovation, we also need to find out what is collectively that we're doing. And then when some startups fail, or when the competition comes really heated, and if some of the companies has to close down, this is the consequence. It's a brand new bicycles. It's over tens of millions of bicycles that has been abandoned. So when we had services, when we had so many apps coming in, we felt like we're optimizing. We have a limited number of resources, in this case, bicycles, and they will serve for us in any given time. So we will have more optimized and environmentally friendly, maybe, environment. But we have to really face the fact that unless we coordinate and think in the system level, these things can happen any given time, over and over again. So I think this really gives us a question, which already at this point, very obvious for everyone here, is that really the challenge of design and innovation today is that it's not just about the great user experience or a commercial success, but because it can be a really terrible urban design. So, how actually, but this is such a challenge, right? You're just new designer and you're really eager to make things happen. You're a product designer, you're a service designer, you're maybe, maybe a politician, a policy designer, who knows? But individually, what you're doing is great. You're delivering something and people are using it. But then this really poses us a question that, perhaps we have to cross and overarch our disciplines as designers, or even beyond that we need to probably be engaged with maybe urban designers or maybe historians, or who knows. But this really gives us a different perspective in how we are going to design things for innovation. Now, this is my take, so feel free to argue or deny. But we basically define innovation as something that transforms us. It could be a product, it could be service, but it really transforms our values, routines, or lives in reversible ways. So we don't really go back to how things were. We feel like it's important, we need it, it's essential. But I think that definition hasn't changed much for, I think, the past decade or so. But increasingly, we are feeling that maybe the irreversibility is not the individual level, but this collective level. Like, how can we feel that this is really needed in the society so that we're not really like trying something and throwing away things? And especially who should be actually in the process of this innovation is a really important keyword for us. This is not our project, but I just I'm being really fascinated by this. This is a really small city called Zama City. If anybody of you've been in Tokyo and been traveling to Hakone for hot springs, you might actually be coming near this city. So Zama City, this is what we call as like a packer truck. It's basically to collect garbages. It's funny thing is that we still use pen and paper and then sort of mark the collection points, which is very, very tedious. I hope things are different in other countries. So actually they team up with some of the technology teams in the Odakyu railway line. So the Odakyu basically has a train that is running across a couple of cities, including the Zama City. And then they came up with this digital technology, which is a sensor that detects where you have the collection points, and when the trucks go by, and they will just mark that those garbages are collected. So basically, if the truck moves, it indicates that the collection has been done. What is important, why is it important to be real time, is that every truck, if they just collect whatever and go, there will be some trucks which was half full, but then don't know what others are doing. So that means they do their own job, they finish it. If there are some people who trashed so many domestic wastes, then that person has a problem, but nobody to receive help for. But in this way, they can collaborate and help with each other. So before it was like some people might be working until 5 in the evening, some of them are finished in noon, but now collectively they can finish their working hours at the same time. And what was really amazing was that use of this technology actually had so many different effects. So for instance, the average of waste per truck. So in average, they can have more waste loaded in a truck per round. And actually, by doing this, they made less rounds to the waste collection center. It's about like half an hour away. And then they reduced the number of times that the trucks have to travel by 18%, which means that there's less carbon emissions, of course. And actually they found like, oh, okay, so I can mark some of the places that needs a special collection. So what they've realized was like almost 10% of the domestic waste thrown in the city are like garden twigs. So it's like, it's such a waste if they just burn them. So why don't we collect them and make it as like a biofuel, biomass energy, so that they are now collecting them separately. And as a result, they reduced the number of domestic waste incinerated. Okay, now incineration is also another problem, but actually they're reducing the number of garbages that's being burned as we speak. And what's fascinating is that I don't know how often this happens, but in Japan, if somebody who's really working in such hard conditions, to be demonstrating how clean the whole place is and by speaking with their own words what they're doing is actually quite fascinating. So they're basically showing us how clean this is. So this happens every day. Every day after they clean it up, there's no smell. I put my face into one of these trucks and I realized like there's absolutely no smell. So they're really proud. By the way, these trucks are also designed and painted by themselves. So they really took their matters in their hands. So they have this really strong mission. And I don't know, my feeling is that perhaps this is one of the things that we hope the designers to be today. I don't know what your feeling is, but they have some skills or they have some professions, but they collectively work together, and they made even carbon emissions of the city decrease, which is kind of things that you will dream that your city office would do for you. So just also, by the way, they go to elementary schools and teach SDGs to the kids after they finish collecting waste. I don't know how saints, what kind of saints they are, but it's that kind of like a ripple effect that we see when design and innovation happens on the ground, and when somebody actually takes those as their disciplines and roles, all these kind of ripple effects happen. So I consider this as a very innovative act. So in a way, I think this is one example, but what are the processes that I think is quite important? Now, before, of course, we've been preaching design thinking, so it's like problem definitions, problems. What is the problem that you want to solve? But I felt like also I have a kind of like exercise after this, so maybe you could also experience this. But we're kind of thinking that perhaps that's a bit of a biased way to pursue things. Of course, you need to have a very important problem to work on, but at the same time, we feel like we should also give opportunity for whoever is going to do something or to innovate, ways to access different resource of people, or also different assets that the place has had already. So we kind of encourage that we will have a place and people to be engaged or to know of as a starting point. And intervention, it means more about how people find their role or purposes in that field. A lot of the times we have this SDGs became, at least in Japan, a very big buzzword. And many students can talk about the environments and saving the earth, but how are you engaged in that big mission is a big question equally. So what is it that you're going to give in that process? I think that it is in order to find how you intervene with that topic. It takes some kind of a process to work on. Disposition, I will talk a little bit afterwards, but it is basically flipping the context. Like if you think that there's a problem, there's something that is lacking. But when you kind of flip that view and then see that, this could be actually an opportunity, and then I think the innovation starts to happen. And then one last thing is place-based, but I think I've already explained about that already. So, just to give the face to this process, it often starts like this. This is in the city of Fukui, and usually it's a group photo. It's just, you don't really know who they are, and it's just a collective people who wants to do something interesting in this city of Fukui. Some people are local, some designers come all the way from Tokyo. Some people are working for like famous fashion brands, but they feel like they want to do something on the ground, so they participate in these type of programs that we offer. Typically, cities or prefectural governments, they offer a certain amount of money. We receive about 20 or 30 people in a semester or a couple of months. And then over the course, they would actually work on the innovation on the ground, where the city or the prefecture is funding. We do a lot of research. So this is in one of the local factories, but these are the ways that we learn what are the industries in the city, and then understand who are they, what are they making, so we know about the ecosystems of the place. For instance, one cyclist, this company is called Bike is Life. He was a professional cyclist, and he was really successful one, because he was actually touring in Paris as well. He was also participating Tour de France and then things like that. But then when he came back to Japan, he was like, I want to make a cycling company. And then he was enrolled in one of our studio programs in Fukuoka City. he did make this bicycle, and we kind of, thought about the good words, and then we came with a company name, Bike is Life. But then I think for him, the aha moment came when what he wanted to create was not a bicycle, but it's the culture. So this is actually in the island of Goto Island, which is in the really south, beautiful sea. And then he was realizing, maybe you need some means of transportation to go around the city for tourists maybe to have a good access. But we don't want cars. We don't want cars, but something environmentally friendly, which is accessible. It doesn't emission any more carbon dioxides. And then he realized that, maybe what I need to provide is not just a bicycle, but it's maybe the tour. So he's actually designing a route where cyclists can tour around the island. So that's about offering the ecotourism. He also sells bulk of bicycles to municipalities. So they will be offered sort of maintained bicycles constantly. So they will have the product, means of transportation, and the routes to travel around. And what's funny thing is that once those kind of things happen, people around that route started to rise. So like, I want to do a cafe, or I have an old inn, maybe I should refurnish and do something more. So all these kind of ripple effects start to happen. So it's kind of like a little innovation one after another. And when that happens on a place, actually the people who you never thought would be innovative or would have that kind of interest to do something, they will have some sort of a resource that can leverage on, and they start changing. And I think we've been keep on seeing that one after another for whoever has been going through this type of processes. So a little bit about the disposition, because I didn't really explain. In Japan, if you have heard of the word akiya, means empty house. Have anybody heard of it? So mostly wooden houses. It's about 10% of our houses are abandoned. So once the family deceased, they just leave it as it is, just to populate it. You don't really have to do anything. It takes more money to tear it down, so they just leave it behind, one after another. Then it just decays, and that's it. But in some places, it's quite a waste. Maybe as individual houses, it doesn't work. But what if those places can be like a communal places? So actually, this is one of the akiyas that's been renovated. And we're actually crowdfunding if you're interested. But this is kind of like a quick renovation that we came up with. And we're actually using one of the tents. For the tent canvases, there's like this tents. And because most of the Akiya houses, it's quite cold. So we're actually teaming up with one tent company in Kyushu, and of them offering these canvases. But they never thought of applying it to Akiya houses. And we're like, but then if we want a quick fix, that's actually a very good way to come up with a new quick ways to renovate the house. And also for them, it is a new business opportunity for them to sort of explore, because it is estimated that perhaps 30% of our houses in Japan would be empty in 10 years. So actually, it's also a business opportunity for the local manufacturers. So it also has some business effects that is a bit more bigger than just the individual house. So, in Japan, we've been talking about Akiya as a problem. But then if we see it as it's more like a cup half empty or half full. So if we start to have that kind of view that, yes, maybe this is the half full, things actually start to happen. And that's when that happens, we feel really comfortable that any given ideas can actually be fruitful. Okay. This is a little bit more on the, not the educational side, but as a company, how we've been engaged with some of the cities. Perhaps some of you may recognize what this is, but this is a nuclear power plant. We have about 50 sites in Japan, and as you know, that after Fukushima has happened, of course, there's a lot of questions about the safety. Also, we're heavily dependent on whatever resources of energy that we have. It's all heavily imported, including the resource for running these type of power plants as well. Most of the cities, when this was built back in the 80s, they were really happy. And the reason is because this provides energy to the city, but also beyond that. So almost the entire, like all the neighboring prefecture would actually have a sufficient energy source by having one of these power plants. Now, the trick is that technologically, it would give us a permanent energy source, but these power plants usually would have maybe a lifetime of 40, 50 years. Strangely, it's expanding thanks to the politicians' kind of will, but it does have some sort of a life expectancy. But at the time, it was, the city was really happy. But then, of course, for 40 years, if you have sufficient energy, sufficient economy, a sufficient labor force, because there's so many people actually working for the power plant, even tourism, it's not a tourism, but approximately 1,000 engineers have to regularly come to maintain the whole technology. So it was running, the economy was running. But what has it left behind was the conversation of what the future holds for the city, how your city would be like. So we had this task of sort of rethinking about this from city's future. And then it doesn't look very serious, but in a very international way. This was actually one of the visions that we put for the public comments of the city, but we call it the Satsuma Future Commons. So the idea was that we would like to explore other energy and then circular alternatives other than the nuclear power plant. Now, so this is more like how we vision the R&D centers, because originally they said, well, we have a piece of land, we want some R&D centers, we want people to come in, we want them to be like innovative. Then we were saying like, maybe we need to find out what is it that we're offering. So this was sort of our vision, that we should probably sort of overwrite the city as the circular city. And what was missing is more, actually there's a video, but I realized that it's on the internet. But, so I can show you afterwards if anybody would be interested. So we needed to have some place where circular design or circularity or circular economy would have a face. So this is actually computer graphics done by one of our staff, Italian staff. She did a great job. I didn't know that this is fake, so I thought I was like always talking about this as a real thing. This is the real thing. So it pretty much, I think we did a good job. So this is more like what we call as like a creative repair center in that city, near like 5 minutes away from the train station. So here we kind of host different ways that we can think about what is it about being circular, what is actually the vision that we hold, and what are the resources that we've been surrounded so far. So this is like, we had a series of different workshops, but in this case it was a bio, but we actually, if you know miso and all these kind of fermentation techniques, we use some actually mold to ferment. So, okay, let's look for some mold in the city. So they're actually looking for different type of species in the city, and then sort of like, sampling them. And eventually, actually, I don't recommend, if you don't have the experts around, to just make miso out of anything. But they basically, went into the field and looked for some different samples, and the kids were there, the parents are there, whoever is interested is invited. We had series, some of them are about food, some of them are about other things, but we had series of these kind of citizen workshops in the place. Yeah. And then eventually they made miso, but I'm going to go for the next. So, and then other things that we do is like, because all these kind of place-based innovation is quite crucial. And what is happening in Asia, not just Japan, is that actually 50 to 60% of the manufacturing takes place in Asia. And 40 and 50% of the goods are consumed in Asia. So there is no point that we wait for some certain regulations, for instance, from Europe coming to say that we should reduce our certain type of liquids or wastes. Actually, if we take the initiative and start thinking about what Asia can do in sort of the circular or more sustainable pathways, I think it makes a lot of difference. So we don't have to wait for the regulations to happen on us, but rather we can take initiative. So we're making this not just about the Japanese effort, but we're trying to exchange some of the ideas together with some of the neighboring countries. So we recently had the Circular Design Week, but this is, for instance, actually in Taiwan. We are trying to exchange different type of practices that we have in different parts of Asia and try to come up with some ways that we can be somewhat respectful to the innovation that has taken place for centuries in Asian context and see how we can exchange our thoughts and practices. So that's something that we're trying to do. Now we have only 20 people and we are supposed to be for-profit company. So let's see if we will last for another 10 years. But this is something that we're trying to do today. Okay. All right, so a bit of a summary, if I can call it this a summary. Oh, it doesn't look like a summary to me. But the point that I wanted to make, because this is also, I think, the background of the theme is about design education. We felt like when we open up that design education or design processes to the public, when we offer that, there's so much more that can happen within that place. So increasingly, we are thinking how we can sort of open that exclusiveness or the ownership of innovation. How can we invite people into the process more so that it will be a collective, sort of like a democratic effort rather than certain. I think both are important. I think we also need some leaders to really innovate with the really advanced technologies and really brilliant minds and thinkings. But we also want some of those little innovations happening from different places, ground up, and that's something that we've been really committed. And I think it's a little bit like weaving a textile, and I'm absolutely just copying and ripping out of your thing. I feel like what you're trying to do is what I would consider as like a weaving a pattern or the textiles, where the horizontal axis may be the different occupations or individuals. But then when the disposition happens and when there are so many different opportunities that we see in a place, and when those two are weaved together, the innovation happens. It's arguable, maybe it's not necessarily financial, but I think that by default it is very social. And that's something that so thanks for your invitation. Thanks to you all, I kind of came up with this sort of like a metaphor of innovation basically being kind of like different patterns of textiles that is unique in that place. So that's my metaphor that I came up with. Actually, ASIE has come and then joined us, actually where the hotel is in. A GID came, so we actually guided them in one of the city. Nearby there is, this part is my promotion. That city has this amazing crafts still left and people are still making these things. And then in the Crafton, we offer this type of, actually these are also made, these wooden hinoki plates and baskets, they are also made locally in the proximity. So that's the breakfast. Also, we received some of the Hong Kong students in field of design coming. This was more like a bamboo, so they didn't have those nice little crafts, but they were more like cutting bamboos and things like that, so a bit more physical. But we also had received some of the students also going through like a week-long process of being engaged with the people in the who owns the forest and the manufacturers who actually make use of the bamboos. So they know some of the resources, and they are the people who actually come in and offer their design skills. And it's been quite fascinating to see the whole process. All right, so that's the conclusion, and I hope I'm not over speaking. And because I want to also go through the exercise, so enough of the blah blahs, but you can read it. All right, so that's my part of the presentation. Thank you so much. So let's do some workshops. How many minutes do I have? 50? 40?
All 60.
60, okay, good. So on the table, I have prepared a few printed maps. Actually, there are two cities that I brought, but we're going to use just the orange one, the one with the orange squares. So that's the city of Kirishima. And I would like you to innovate. Just try out the place-based innovation, just for ideation. We're not going to do the whole process because it will take a whole day. So we're just going to touch upon the beginning of that process. Just to give you some ideas. So you will find like two maps and then two different colored cards, but the ones that you will try out or use today are the orange ones. So that's the city of not the Satsuma Sendai, but the Kirishima city. So just find the Kirishima city map, and I'm going to explain how to use that after this. There's also like a tracing papers, so don't feel guilty, just be bold and draw things and put things onto it, no problem. There's, I think, two maps so you can, I think you also have sufficient, it's just gorgeous printouts. I'm so glad I didn't have to carry and crush all the papers. And thank you to Renee for preparing everything. Just to give some ideas, what is Kirishima City, okay? Because otherwise you have no idea what the city is about. So it is in the south. It's the south, very bottom right here. That's the Kagoshima prefecture. Prefecture is it actually extends the island. So from here, it's the Okinawa and then Taiwan. So actually, it's closer to the other parts of Asia than Japan. They have very interesting climates, like 3 different climates, and it's very fascinating because it's tropic, and it's some places at the mountains it's really cool. So these dots are the place types. You will find those cards, and you will also find the descriptions. So maybe you can spend a little bit of time reading those, but I'll try to sort of quickly introduce some of those places. So actually, there's a really huge volcanic mountains called the Kirishima Mountains. And for thousands of years, it's been, well, tens and thousands of years, it's been providing really gorgeous water and soil. There are some amazing manufacturers there. He's listening, right? He's actually listening to the mold. It's amazing. Like he hears the fermentation when it's ready. And he's actually making vinegar. And these potteries are used for 200 years. Well, some of them they've renewed, but they still haven't changed the size. They tried to change the size, big and small. It didn't work. So they're using the same ones. After 10 years of experience, you start hearing which one is ready. I have no idea what that means, but and actually some of the senior craftsmen, they would put the stone onto the top of the lid, so the other amateur, the beginner craftsmen can listen to the ones which is ready. So that's how it's very sensorial. But this is like a brewery that is there. To make these kind of fermentation happen, you need to have some kind of a microorganism. If you maybe you have heard of the word koji, I think that's kind of becoming a bit trendy worldwide. But this actually helps to have a stable fermentation and to make sake, make soy sauce, make vinegar, whatever, we use koji. And there was somebody in 1900s who found a certain type of koji, and this is being used, for instance, for shochu, which is the local alcohol. There's a tea maker who makes the tea because the climate is actually relatively mild there. And then something happened around 1970s, and we have the airport, we have the semiconductor factory, so that's like a really different type of economy happening here. The reason why I'm introducing this, which seems a bit irrelevant to that, is that actually these two locations, just, I don't know, by accident or I don't know, the koji maker and the airport has happened to be very, very close. And then they found each other. And what happened was that the food waste from the airport, it's massive, right? And it's just a waste. But now, because by using those koji to ferment, they can make pretty good food for the pigs. Actually, the pigs taste really good. That's another story. But it doesn't smell. I don't know why, but so delivering some of the waste all the way to be fermented, that's not going to happen because you need trucks, you need resources to deliver to somewhere. But when these kind of local resources can be accessible in such distance, the chemistry is amazing. So now they have come up with a new type of products, and they even have some good tasty pigs also on the farm. There's also a very interesting daycare in Kirishima City. And they single-handedly found a way to be circular. So the 100%, nearly 100%, they said maybe one product that the kids eat at the daycare is locally sourced. We don't have that kind of system in Japan where you can really easily connect with the local producers of fish, vegetables, and meat. But here they managed to do that. So what happened was that kids actually, they compost. They can put stick their hands in the fish and they cut, and they can actually make fish dishes by the scratch from the year of 3. They probably can use knives better than me, and they can make tempura by 3 years of 3. It's very embarrassing. They actually harvest rice with the local farmers together. But what's interesting is that they make miso. And by now you probably realize, aha, there's koji, yes. So they have rice, they have water. I said that they have this Kirishima mountain has been offering really nice water. And then they have koji as well. So kids, every month, they make miso by themselves. So by the time that they are in their primary school, they had made miso for 36 times. Now that's like the grandma level that they can be a very good miso producer. So what they're doing is actually reinventing the whole food supply and the circular ecosystem locally, starting from the kids. And I don't think it would have happened the same if it were adults. I think there was something about this, feeling that you're actually changing the future together. And then when it is centered around the kids, it makes a whole lot of difference. And of course, the compost that they make is going back to the farmer. So they have this whole cycle invented. So all these things are happening in Kirishima, and by now I think you feel like this city is a really wonderful place. But I believe that most of the city have this type of resources. So it's just the way that we just shed lights on things and just, giving some sort of ways that we approach place-based innovation. So exercise. You will have the map, you have the cards, you kind of understood what's going on. Don't worry about the details, just imagine the whole thing. Use the place types and connect them and come up with new ideas. Anything, it doesn't matter. And if you feel like you're stuck, just maybe you can think about some of the interesting things that is happening in your city or a country. I'm sure there is some, like maybe somebody reinventing the churches or who knows what. It just doesn't have to be really truth to the city itself, because this is all just an exercise. Probably you might feel like, there's no school card, or we need more maybe some other like factory or some other things. When you're thinking about it, you will feel like you're missing a place. So there's empty cards in blue frames. This is actually, I made it so reverse, but just draw something and then just write like school or whatever, hospital or whatever you come up with. And then maybe you can come up with a new ideas by using these places. So the daycare was actually one example. And also you saw that food waste has become the food stocks for the actually the food for the pigs and cows and things like that. So that's also done with the airport and the Koji company, and maybe you need some pigs also, so there's something more. But anyway, just come up with your new ideas. Maybe it's up to you how to proceed. Maybe individually you can come up with new ideas, or collectively you can discuss one idea. I don't really mind, but maybe we can spend some time and think about that. Writing on the map is you need to have some courage. So there's this tracing papers, I think two per map, I think. So you can probably try and fail and try again if you feel like you need a few. But also you can just place them onto the map, so you have some sort of ideas about the rivers and mountains. You don't have to necessarily stick onto that, but I feel like it helps to have those maps underneath it. Okay? Maybe that might help to sort of like warm up a little bit.
So we started out with this idea of the weaving and the matrix and thinking about textiles, actually. So koji could be used for fermentation of textiles, and we could use a fashion school there, but we could combine it together with the koji factory, the community center to get workers, the life goods store where they could be sold, and the hotel could actually be furnished with textiles made out of these koji fermentation processes. So this idea of bedding and towels and also fashion became the first idea. And then I'll pass it on to the way that textiles can actually inform some of the other aspects.
Yes, so the idea is to attract young people to the city and keep them in the city so that they decide to live their life in the city. And we hope to achieve this by offering a great educational system like the fashion school or design university, or at least general university. And of course, there also should be a possibility to lead a life of well-being. So it's near the hot springs and hiking possibilities in the nature. And of course, these young people need to have jobs, so they might want to work for a semiconductor factory. Who gains its energy from the volcano? Yeah, from geothermy. And yeah, that's how we hope to attract what's left. The food culture thing. Yeah, this is what makes them attracted, because you can make new experience and have a cool lifestyle around food. And then we had the idea of having a texture festival, which is all about materials, but also about food and fermentation, that could take place maybe once a year and attract people. Would you like to add something? Go ahead.
Thank you. And for the name of it, we thought of umami being, the way you experience texture in the mouth. So maybe there would be a way we could generate the name for the texture festival in the community. So it would have to maybe be a Japanese name, but that would involve the community itself.
Wow, so grand. But yeah, I like the way that you started off from one textile idea, but then you also went all the way up to the energy bit. So going back and forth between different scales, I think that really makes things really valid as a city size innovation. So yeah, amazing that you've done this far. Thank you so much.
All right, that suits perfectly, because we are the B team. We developed a new tour around the city. So we started with a wild brainstorming. And first idea was having this sensory with hearing the sound of the fermentation. And then we just got the idea, okay, we have also this hot tube, the hot springs, where you can have the feeling and the touch. We have the new restaurant with a taste. We have all the delicious food. Then we have this fermentation area where we have the spice shop and stuff like that. So that's the smell area. And we situated the library next to the community center near the seaside to have this visual effect, that you have the fifth sense included. And then Renee came up with an idea from Iceland. So they have a lot of tomato plants up there because they use the heat of the water and also the quality of the water to grow tomato. So we are totally into tomato production. And for tomatoes, you need also bees to have new tomatoes. So we came up with the idea to be in this restaurant. So you sit in the restaurants, have a lot of tomato stuff around you and the bees. And the old restaurant, because it's nearby the airport and it's pretty loud, so there are no bees. So it's to be or not to be. The new sensory tour in the city. Thanks.
I love the fact that you started off from something very sensorial, like just capturing one of those episodes of listening. And definitely, I was also talking with the team that at daycare, when they know when to make all this miso, they smell. Only the kids can tell, today's the day that we need to make miso. And the teachers, they don't know. So it's really about stimulating and using our senses. And they really captured it and made it into a wonderful tourism across the city. So
You've realized it's a
oh, yes, it's a heart-shaped, yes. Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, next team.
When Rolls-Royce had the problem to innovate their ideas and to find innovation, Rolls-Royce went to Instrumentenbauer, to people that build old instruments with an old knowledge, just as a story. So when we were thinking about what we could do, we thought this place is really unique because it has two things. It has past and future. It has the beauty of craftsmanship in combination with tech, which is kind of unique as a place and to people to live in the past and in the future and have that knowledge. So I'll pass on to our craft and tech ideas.
Yeah, okay. So what we were thinking is we try to merge craft and tech in every aspect of life. So for example, the empty houses, IKEA, can be kind of a window shopping for tech industry. Or if they, another big company wants to be part of Kirishima, they can rent all the empty places as an office, as satellite offices. Then we thought about what would all these daycare liberated mothers do? And so we have women in the industry all of a sudden because it's all craft men. And but we cannot say that you can be a 10 years or that you can live up with catch up with a 10 years experience of listening to fermentation. But what they can do, they can be craft travel agents. So we open up for craft tourism, craft travel agencies, and these liberated mothers will guide all the people coming in, flying in from the beautiful airport and visit the craft people. We have knowledge baskets that are sold into the shops or into the travel agencies with knowledge about the craft from basics to mid-level to CEO super level. So the knowledge is kept and it's also brought into the places where the tourists come from. Did I forget something? It's all about love. In between craft and tech. And we have the craft and tech taxes, which bring the money in, and the revenues on, I don't know anything about revenues, so I will hand over to
Well, the idea is to allow a circular economy. So the factory will have to buy craft and tech taxes. However, they will get a profit from the revenue selling the knowledge baskets in the store, in the local store.
I think that's it.
Well, this is amazing. I think, having this craft and technology put together, so it's almost like industry of the new and the old meeting together. And then you also came up with how to, use and leverage from the places. That's another opportunity. And so you've, also thought about different talents and resources coming available and then filling these kind of new businesses. So you basically had all the pictures put together. So that was amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm going to refer to that Rolls-Royce introduction. So it's like, we had inspired German people and and all the car industry and connections, and that would be actually an inspiring story for back in Japan as well. So thank you. Great.
I think I realized that we got stuck in analyzing what it is all about. And somehow it was maybe too much information because we were just sorting things and time was running out.
Right,
Anyway.
right. Yes.
So this is a takeaway also. If you think of where we are here, how can we integrate these impulses in challenging and improving our own design education? What are the limitations? What do I need to bring a resource so that the team can work? Yeah, okay.
And, ideally, this is like a real, a simple way. And when realistically speaking, it's better that we actually go to those fields and feel it. So you don't have to rely on the text information. That way you can actually come up with more ideas without, trying to analyze and digest the information that's given. So that's fine. I think that's also a good learning of the whole process. Thank you so much.
Thank you.